You can have a great, clear strategy. You can have brilliantly smart people in different areas of the business. But if you're not giving them the ability to contribute 100% all the time, by giving them the autonomy to make decisions, giving them the ability to speak up, giving them the ability to say, look, I made a mistake, but actually I'm going to fix it by doing X, Y, and Z, i.e. give them the room to be truly accountable, you never get the best out of them. You never get the best out of your strategy. You're always operating at 70, 80% rather than 100% in terms of making the most of the resources you've got. So for me, it's been the biggest enabler as a leader is letting go, and also being humble enough to kind of role model that vulnerability, to say, look, I made a mistake, I screwed up here, and this is what I did wrong. I'm telling you this because when you screw up, I'd much rather know about it, so let's not be, hiding, lying and faking stuff here. And also I need your help.
Welcome, folks, to this episode of the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. I'm super excited to share with you today. My guest is Myles Anderson, who is the founder and CEO of BrightLocal. Myles, how's it going today?
Hi, Anthony. Thank you very much for having me on the podcast today. As your listeners will probably understand, I'm from the UK from my accent. So we're nearing the end of the day. It's been a relatively long day, relatively long week, which I'm sure we'll kind of get onto. But as all things stand, pretty good. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here, bookending us at the end of your day. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what BrightLocal is and what they do and how they help organizations around the world?
Yeah, fantastic. So BrightLocal is a UK-based company. I'm the founder and CEO. We are a software organization. We provide marketing, analytics, software, and services, primarily to marketeers who work as consultants or in marketing agencies or inside small businesses or brands that have an internal marketing team. And they predominantly work around local marketing. So we typically work with businesses that attract customers from a local area. Now, that could be a physical business like, say, a restaurant or a shop or a cafe where customers will come to the business. It could be a place where they come to you, plumbers, gardeners, construction work, anything like that. Or it could be professional services, business consultants, lawyers, solicitors, etc. And we essentially help them understand how their local marketing performance is going on, primarily looking at channels like Google Local, Google Maps, Apple Maps, those local platforms that are real hubs for finding local audiences and new customers for your business. We help them understand the visibility, how to improve the visibility, and essentially attract new customers. We also provide some services that take care of some of the heavy lifting. We are a UK-based business, but actually a majority of our customers in the US. So around 85% of our customers are based in the US. If you include Canada, it's above 90%. We actually don't have an office in the US, so we've managed to grow an enormous audience over there, internationally. We're up to around 200 people now. We've been going since 2009. We've got an office in the UK, an office in the Philippines, and we have an office in the Ukraine. And we're also an independent bootstrap business. So we don't have any outside investment. We've just grown with a vision of long-term profitable growth. And we've been reinvesting the profits to grow the business pretty much for the last 10 years at around 20% a year. And we're up to around $11 million in annual revenue now.
That's amazing. Bootstrapped, helping local businesses and growing to 200 employees around the world. Like that's A, impressive, B, and super cool. And as a marketer or marketeer by trade, I know how big local search is. And so you're providing a very valuable service and at scale. So not just a small agency. So that's really cool. As you've grown through these challenges as a business owner, what are like 2 or 3 of the big kind of learnings, big challenges that you've had to face as you grow from bootstrap small business to over 200 employees worldwide?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think the biggest piece for me as a leader of a business of this size is how much of a learning journey I've had to go on personally to get here. So for a bit of background, prior to starting BrightLocal in 2009, I just worked within other organizations. I've been a paid employed person working generally within business development, within media organizations. I think the biggest team I ever had under me in that time was 2 people. And so when I arrived and set up BrightLocal, I set up literally from my kitchen table with my business partner, Ed, who's our chief technology officer, really with a hope and a prayer that it would get somewhere, that our idea had legs and we could build it. We weren't able to raise any capital at the time, mainly because we had very little track record or experience in the field, no track record of running businesses, not a huge amount of track record in the industry in terms of knowledge. And so no one was prepared to take a punt on us. I probably think, had I been on the other side of the table hearing a pitch from me, I probably wouldn't have put any money with us as well. So it doesn't sort of surprise me. But in that time, as we've grown, consistently over the last 10 years, I've had to almost reskill myself in terms of my leadership capacity, capabilities, and understanding what my role requires sort of every 6 months. And sometimes I've done that through doing formal leadership training. I've just also read an awful lot of books, consumed as many ideas and notions and tactics and strategy sort of directions from a huge range of books, and picked out the pieces I liked, added them to my kind of leadership arsenal, and then have sort of developed my own style. But I think that learning journey has been absolutely crucial and critical. I would never have got to this size had I not been willing to do that. And sometimes, I had to get dragged kicking and screaming to do another round of learning, and it can be kind of pretty exhausting. But in all, I love the journey. So that's probably one thing I had to do. A second big step, which is when we got to probably around 120 people, is to put in place a really, really good leadership team around me. Up until that time, I had taken on, I was too actively involved in the operations of all areas of the business. And having started the business from day one, I said at kind of kitchen table, I did everything. So back in the early days, I would, I'd be, marketing in the morning, I'd be saying to customers in the afternoon, I'd be designing aspects of our tool in the evening, and then I'd be talking to and pitching to developers, and then QAing the software all in one day. So huge breadth of roles that I'd have to do. Not that I did all of them very well, to be really honest. I was a real jack of all trades. And now that we've got a bigger team, specialists in these departments, I really see how bad I was at so many of these roles and how delighted I am to have sort of specialists in place. But essentially, I had a finger in all the pies of the sort of business, and then having to extract myself from that took a really sort of conscientious move on my part. But the thing that made it possible was putting in place a leadership team that I could entrust, and then actually upskilling them through a lot of leadership training and coaching, so that I could really, really give them the space and time to do that. And actually, we did that as a leadership team, a whole year's worth of training, a sort of modular course that lasted over 12 months. And that was really transformative, actually, and absolutely worth the investment to get there. Because now my time is split in three ways. Essentially all the operational stuff I entrust to team members. We actually try and push decision making down through the organization, so decisions get made at every level, get made quickly, so we can move quickly as a business. I now spend around half my time just thinking and working on the culture of the organization. I spend another quarter of it sort of working with the leadership team and kind of focusing on execution of the strategy that we have. And then the sort of final quarter is spent on the strategy and product development, and ensuring that I'm staying close to that side of the business, because it's so key. But I no longer really have much involvement in customer service and sales and marketing. I understand what's going on in those areas, but I've got great people who know how to make the right decisions with the right principles at heart, and I give them full autonomy to do that. So having a leadership team, enabling them through coaching, training, as well as giving them the autonomy to make decisions, has been a huge enabler for me as a CEO to focus on the areas where I can really add value. And I think the third piece is establishing a clear culture within the business, a culture that we took me a bit of time to articulate the culture in a specific set of words. I always knew what I wanted to create within the business. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I started the business, Ed and I, back in the early days, is that we'd never found places where we wanted to work, where we felt truly appreciated, that were genuine meritocracies, and where we could be ourselves and be, and just do good work and be applauded for that, and be looked after and supported. So we wanted to create an organization that would essentially provide the best working experience possible for team members, i.e. the thing that we felt that we lacked in our early careers. And that was what we hold at the core of our culture. And so once we kind of knew that, and once we were able to kind of articulate it, we've been able to use that in many ways to bring in the right type of people into the business, people that share our values and our beliefs, people that are going to cherish our culture and be the guardians of it, as much as I am and as much as Ed is. And so when I talk about pushing decision making down through the business and getting people to make decisions in the right way, having that culture in place that everyone understands, and not just understands, but cherishes and supports, means that when they're having their own meetings and they're deciding which decision to make, they understand how to make the decision based on the very strong culture that we've got, that they are a solid part of.
Yeah, absolutely. So for everybody listening at home, Myles just distilled 11 years of learning into about 6 minutes or so. So looking backwards, it's all so blatantly obvious and clear. Like, build yourself up over time so that you can have greater capacity, put people in place so that they can take on some of that capacity. And then you have to both go on that journey of development together. And so you have the benefit of 11 years of wisdom to look at where you're at and saying, hey, like, that's basically the repeatable process, the repeatable step. It's easier said than done. And it's sometimes hard to see when you're in it. And
I would probably say I have the benefit of 11 years of mistakes.
Yes. Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff is learned the hard way by either getting it wrong slightly or getting it wrong in sort of significant ways. But then having the consciousness to recognize that, and also having a bit of the humility and the vulnerability rather, to admit to it and allow others to see that vulnerability, and also to help. Allowing other people in to help is a huge part of that. And also telling, as I said, I had 2 people under me in my last role, the biggest team I ever had, and now I have 200. And the best way that I've learned to kind of cope with that is to tell people, I don't have all the answers. In fact, I barely have any of the answers. So you have to come up with the answers or help me realize what the answer is. And by letting people in, letting them take control, you give them huge amounts of job satisfaction, huge amounts of intrinsic motivation that they bring to work every day. And you also relieve yourself of the pressure of being the one that has to have a grip on all parts of the business at all times, which is impossible as you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to record a video today about, how your team needs to be better than you. And because it's really like that becomes ultimately the bottleneck to the business. But one of the things that I really love about what you shared about the vulnerability and being okay with making mistakes is having the culture of being a continuous improvement, for lack of a better word, organization, one that embraces learning and development, doesn't show up with the attitude like, I'm bad, therefore I need to fix this. Is I'm actually good, and that's why I need to take development to continually improve so that we can grow as a team. So you need to be humble, because if you're not humble or coachable, then it makes it impossible for any of that learning to not only make it through the leadership team, but to cascade throughout the organization. And that's, your ability to open those doors, I imagine, contributed to your ability to grow so quickly, so successfully, and so scalably across geographies. Fair to say?
It's almost the soul piece. It's the bit that drives everything else. You can have a great, clear strategy. You can have brilliantly smart people in different areas of the business, but if you're not giving them the ability to contribute 100% all the time, by giving them the autonomy to make decisions, giving them the ability to speak up, giving them the ability to say, look, I made a mistake, but actually I'm going to fix it by doing X, Y, and Z, i.e. give them the room to be truly accountable, you never get the best out of them. You never get the best out of your strategy. You're always operating at 70, 80% rather than 100% in terms of making the most of the resources you've got. So for me, it's been the biggest enabler as a leader is letting go, and also being humble enough to kind of role model that vulnerability, to say, look, I made a mistake, I screwed up here, and this is what I did wrong. I'm telling you this because when you screw up, I'd much rather know about it, so let's not be hiding, lying, and faking stuff here. And also, I need your help. I need you to help me get this right and put this right. So this is the issue, help me solve it. And as we all know, if you can harness the power of 200 brains, you've got a much better chance of coming up with the right answers than just trying to keep it within yourself or a small group. And there are some people that I think find that hard to kind of open up, because they think there's that sort of figure of leadership, or that idea of leadership as being incredibly strong and having all the answers and being very forthright. And there are times when that's important. There's times where you need to be really clear. You need to have a clear strategy, and talk about what that is in very clear and direct terms. And you need to try and have the answers to people. But often getting to that point requires collaboration, requires allowing others to help you get answers to those. And I think if you could find the balance of, being strong when you need to be strong, and determined pretty much all the time, with being vulnerable and allowing others to help, you just maximize the contribution that everyone in the business can bring.
Yeah, absolutely. in the last kind of 10 minutes or so. One of the things that you touched on is, supporting people as themselves. And so we kind of talked about this in the pre-roll, and, I think it's important to talk about so that there are the employees and then the human beings that make up those employees, and recognizing that they are not separate. They are in fact the same. And the past 2 years, and most notably the past kind of 2 weeks, has really highlighted the kind of challenges that individuals can face within their business. So you've got workers around the world, and some of them are dealing with challenges right now. I don't know how to ask this in any other way. Like how you mentioned it was challenging. What are some of the things that you're learning as a CEO through that? And then if you have any information or context you want to share about the employees that are in Ukraine right now.
Yeah, I did, as you just mentioned, I mentioned earlier, we have a team in Ukraine, around 35 software developers located in Kyiv. And I'm sure, as everyone will be aware, Ukraine is at war with Russia. There is an unjust and unfair invasion of Ukraine at the moment. And my team, who have, a lot of them have been with the company many, many years. I've worked with developers and software engineers in Ukraine for around 10 years. I've been to Kyiv over a dozen times, and met the people there. I've socialized with them. I've met many of their families. They are, they're not just team members. They're friends. They're allies. They're part of our BrightLocal family, and it's very, very hard to see what they're going through at the moment. I mean, the speed of the kind of Russian advance and the speed at which the situation has changed is phenomenal. So a week ago, some of them were on our annual team ski trip. And less than a week later, they're fleeing their homes, they're leaving everything they know behind, and they are trying to find safe spaces in Western Ukraine, or get across the border into the EU, into places like Poland and Romania. So for me, absolutely, this is probably the hardest challenge by a long way that I've ever had to face as a boss, as someone who has a responsibility for looking after people in my care, people who are in my charge, in my team members. And what I find interesting about it is, it's very easy to do things in good times. It's quite easy to be a good boss in good times, because there's less stress and less pressure. For us as a culture, our culture is very much about people. It's very much about caring personally and supporting people. And right now, we're under immense pressure to provide as much care as we can do. And two things I want to say. One is we're absolutely doing that, and that's our number one priority, is to try and support the team there as much as possible. We've found some safe houses for them where they've managed to get to, where they are out of immediate harm's way. They've taken their families, they've taken their parents. We're looking for onward transport into Europe for them. So the conversations that I'm now having are not about strategy and Q2 objectives and our kind of marketing initiatives. It's about, how do we get them food and money? How can we possibly get them out of country? If they can't leave, can their families leave? And what can we do to give them safe passage to safe places? It's an enormous sort of turnaround. I think if I switch off my emotions, and my emotions are running pretty high at the moment, because I know these people personally, some of them worked for me for 8 years. So I know their families. For me as a business owner, this is an ultimate test of how true we are to our culture. If I can say we care personally about people, but do my actions really follow up with that? So in many ways, I have people in the business look at me going, you've told us that you care about us. You told us that you'll support us. You told us that, we bring our whole selves to work. So how do you respond in this case? So actually, this is a chance for me as a business owner to show my deep humanitarian side, but also show that all the stuff I've talked about in terms of caring personally, I absolutely stand by switching ourselves 100% focus on, not trying to get the team to work. The team miraculously are working from the places that they've managed to kind of get to, not all the time, but they need a bit of a distraction from what's going on, and actually work provides an element of that sort of distraction. But also it shows to the rest of the business that actually, our rhetoric around caring personally about looking after people, we stand by in the bad times as well as in the good times. And I think that's a key tenet of leadership and of growing a culture. It's about truthfulness, trustworthiness, and consistency. And you actually if you break any of those three things, then you undermine what people believe the company is about, and they'll start to believe you less and less. They'll start to contribute less. They'll start to they'll work a little bit less hard. They might start to look around at other organizations. So I believe as a leader, constantly role modeling good leadership skills and constantly role modeling your own culture, And it's important to do that in the most testing times as much as it is in the easy and good times.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I still appreciate that. I don't think there's ever a truer example that I've heard, let alone on this show or in real life, of really having to. It's not even about putting your culture to the test. It's just like, this is like real life. Like, no bullshit. As much as I want to be kind of motivational and all that other stuff, it's not about that. There's, human lives at risks, and as a business owner, people put their livelihoods in your care. On some days, it's just their mental health and their financial ability to pay their bills. And today, it's about families and history and sovereignty and just so much stuff. So I really appreciate you being open and honest and sharing your experience with us today. And, from the bottom of my heart, I wish everything good for your people, and of course, everybody affected. But, it's tough. And I just thank you for being here. And I really hope everything works out for the best for you and your people. Where can people learn more about what you're doing? And maybe if they want to support your team members or anybody in the Ukraine, how can they do that?
Yeah, that's very kind, and thanks for being so sort of sensitive and appreciative of the sort of situation. So I guess if you want to support obviously what's going on in Ukraine, I mean, I would say that our team members have, amongst the whole population of Ukraine, are probably pretty well supported right now because of what we're doing for them. Whereas there are vast swathes of the population that have less support. So there's places like the Red Cross. There are a huge number of charities that are starting up, Ukraine appeals for cash and supply. So please consider donating to one of those. Obviously, check that, make sure it's a good, bona fide, genuine sort of charity that is up and running, because some charities, sadly, are not able to function in the current crisis. But any support and aid that can be given to Ukraine is hugely appreciated. If you'd like to know more about BrightLocal, you can just go to brightlocal.com. As I said earlier, we also have an academy on there. So if you're interested in understanding about local marketing and learning it, we have a free academy. It's got 7 or 8 courses that pretty much tell you everything you need to know about how to succeed in local search marketing. If you want to know, potentially kind of work with BrightLocal, we have a free trial. You can sign up. You can use the software. We also have a really consultative sales team. You can book yourself in for a sales call and a demo introduction on there as well. If you want to connect with me personally, I'd love to hear from you. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Myles Anderson. Myles is spelled M-Y-L-E-S, so a little bit unusual. And if you want to email me directly, it's Myles, M-Y-L-E-S, @brightlocal.com.
Awesome, Myles. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for your openness. And again, all the best to you, your family, and your team.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Folks, my guest today, Myles Anderson, who is the founder and CEO of BrightLocal. Check out his team, check out what he's doing, and, just check in on your people. They might not be affected directly by what's going on, but, we're all in this mess together. And so some more than others. So really just, be a great leader, support them, and then help them get to that next level. So appreciate you watching, appreciate you listening, appreciate your contribution, whatever you do in your community today. And I hope you're well. So this has been the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. My name is Anthony Taylor. Thanks for watching. And until next time.